Yeah, what's good, Joe? Shaman the Bigga P, and here to share my thoughts on the fight cards that just happened tonight. Oh, in case you're wondering, I got my Eagles jersey on. This is the first, I guess, the first video I've done for this year, and this is, coming off the heels of the Eagles finally getting that Super Bowl win. So of course I have to wear that. I had to bring out the jersey from my closet and wear it for this video. Eagles is a number one. But anyways, we have, I could talk about Eagles all day, but that's not the point of this video. So yes, we had two cards tonight, um, both from PBC, and of course, before I get to the PBC cards, though, I just want to talk briefly on the World Boxing Super Series card. Um, we had one of the semifinals for the super middleweight title. George Groves versus Chris Eubank Jr. Um, Honestly, going into this, I thought the fight would at least be like 50-50. And it's 50-50 only because although Groves is a very experienced guy, has experience, has been there with enough top guys that I know he's not a pushover. You think, hey, he's getting up there in age, even though I don't even think he's even 30 yet. You think that might be a little bit too much. And then you have Chris Eubank, although, very young, very brash, very athletic fighter, and just based off that, it's like, okay, he might have a shot. Even though in his lone loss, he did get outboxed by Billy Joe Saunders. So that was the 50-50 I was talking about. So I was thinking, okay, this will be a good clash of styles. See who pretty much which will prevail, the experience or youth. In this case, it was experience. I don't know what Eubank's whole strategy was leading into this fight. I mean, some say that he was actually training himself, which is even more asinine than it is. But if that was the case, it certainly looked like it. Because I mean, there was just no words for how badly he fought. Um, Basically, and what are some of the things? He barely used a jab. He bull rushed in head first, led with his head, flailing away, smothered his work when he's on the ropes. I mean, everything was just ineffective. I mean, he was out there trying to be the 168 version of Sean Porter, and uh, and then Gross pretty much all he did. I mean, pretty much all he did, he just banked the rounds. It was just, he just kept a jab in his face. The jab had him resetting. The jab had him, and then when he got inside, tied him up. Pretty much it was just flat out. It was outboxing. It was so one sided. It was unbelievable. Um, and then even then, like even in the last round where Groves seemingly dislocated his shoulder, he still was able to stave off the attacks from Eubank Jr. and pretty much you know keep the round incredibly close. So like pretty much the scores were a little closer than I had. I think it's like 116-112 or like 150-113, which I thought. And then I think it was a 117-112, which is more along with the scores that I gave it. I think I gave it like 117-111. But kudos to George Gross for outboxing the young guy and keeping it. In my opinion, he won wide and he won clear. And now, of course, he's going to face the winner of Callum Smith and Brahmer, which is the fight that's next week. And the funny thing is, too, is I didn't think Gross would actually keep his title, but hey, stranger things have happened. This is why I was boxing. So yes, that was a pretty decent fight. So now we'll get to the first PBC card, card on Fox, which opened up with Caleb Plant versus Porky Medina. That fight was not the most entertaining of fights to watch. Um, Plant Plant for the most part, I think there was just a lot of wasted movement. There was just a lot of movement. There's just too much movement and not making Porky pay for it. Um, Now, and then this is my thing. Like movement, obviously, yes. The object of boxing is to hit, to not get hit. but also too, if you're moving so much and you're not dissuading the person, to actually stop following you, I feel it's just too wasted. And there was just times where Plant was just not even active on. I mean, he was just moving and jabbing, like not putting enough right hands behind it, and it showed, and it shows the inexperience, even as Porky was beginning to heat up a little bit. Now, Porky didn't make weight, and that was a surprise to me. 'Cause usually he's pretty professional. And another thing I did notice from Porky too, and I think is he had the knee brace on his left leg, his lead leg, and he looked a lot slower than I thought it was. But then he didn't make the weight. I mean, by like maybe three fourths of a pound, he missed it by. At least that's what I think. Uh, but he didn't. In all the fights, I mean, he's a fairly entertaining fighter, but he didn't look anywhere near the guy that I saw flatten Jay Leon Love, or who gave Badu Jack a good brawl, or he faced the one who I thought actually beat DeGale. Um, and then of course the Benavides fight, um, which he suffered very uh, very serious knockout, uh, very 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 serious knockout. He looked at it, and I was hoping that maybe it wasn't because of that fight, because he did take a lot in that fight too. But yeah, he looked a lot slower. He didn't look as much explosive as he usually does in the past. But as the fight progressed, he was able to get inside a little bit and catch Plant on the ropes. Plant didn't really do much per se. I mean, at least not to the last round, where he started tiring, he started going to the ropes a little too much, and then only then he started landing some more right hands, to try to keep Porky off him. Um, Fortunately, Porky really came on in the last two rounds, but I think it was a little bit too late. Um, so Plant won the fight, but he wasn't the he was to me he wasn't overly impressive. Um, Medina, I don't know where you go with him. I mean, I'd probably need to gauge in another fight is whether or not he just simply just took too much punishment, um, from the Benavides fight, or on top of compounding, maybe not making weight, or being drained from making weight. That's another thing too. Blade didn't even go to his body, not even hold on much. I was like, if he didn't make weight, you should go punish his body for it. But that didn't seem to be the case either. So Plant won the fight, and now he is in line for a title shot with Caleb Truex, who holds the IBF version of the 168 title. So see how that goes. The main event of there, of course, was Victor Ortiz versus Devon Alexander. As I called it before the fight was signed, it's a fight of the two head cases. Devon, and of course, his history, um, being derailed by a painkiller addiction, which in itself is actually incredible, because for somebody with a painkiller addiction, you would think he would have gotten knocked out a couple times. Now, granted, there are a couple of losses that are just unbelievable, like the Aaron Martinez loss, which I could not believe happened. But you would think that even with the painkiller addiction, he would actually get knocked out or even knocked down, which neither of them actually happened. He's only been down once in his career. Uh, but yeah, Devin is someone that I was a big fan of as he was coming up. When he beat Urango, I thought he was on his way, and then after he starts these fights, he starts struggling. I couldn't understand it. The fight with Bradley, of course, angered me to no end. I couldn't. I didn't. I couldn't. I had to. I actually stopped supporting him, because he was just making me too mad with his performances. And then there was a Lucas fight, which I thought he lost, and then he goes to that, and then he whoops Maidana, and I'm like, and then he has this, and then he beats Randall Bailey to become welterweight champion, and he no trouble there. He boxed him up, and then he loses to Sean Porter, which was another what the fuck moment to me. And then later on loses to Khan, widely, that's the first time I actually seen him actually outboxed, not like bullied out of his belt or anything, bullied out of a win or whatever. And then the Aaron Martinez fight, which I just couldn't believe that happened. So yeah, so after coming back from spending time in Ray, he's back, and then you have Victor Ortiz, who I don't even want to go into his situation. I mean, everyone knows pretty much, with the exception of, I mean, one, he has a DQ loss because he lost control of himself, and he has another loss. He has the one, the Josecito Lopez, and I consider that a legit loss, because Josecito Lopez pretty much broke his jaw and broke his sternum. I mean, that's that those. I mean, you can't. I mean, if you want to quit off that, you can quit off that. And then he has the other fights where he just pretty much, he he quit. so so you had to figure this was like a crossroads fight, and they did fight like it was a crossroads fight. In the beginning, in the first half of the fight, in the tail it was Devin and his pressure, and his speed that made a difference. I mean, he landed some really nice left hands, and then a right hook opened up. Had like a mouse over on Victor's eye. I think it was his left eye, and it was mean too. It was like it was very pronounced. I was thinking to myself, I hope he didn't break his like orbital or anything like that. But I thought, I mean, Devin pretty much ran away with the first half of the fight, but then Devin started losing some steam, and Victor, I think, got himself back in the fight, won himself a couple of rounds. And some of it was getting, it was actually getting, there was a lot of close exchanges. It was very gritty. Um, they got to the point, and then neither of them have been 12 rounds for a while. So I think the last 2 rounds or so, literally they were like falling into each other, trying to, they would try to find the inside, and they were falling in and clinching. Like I said, they just weren't, they hadn't gone 12 in a while, and it was a surprisingly it was a good fight. It was a decent fight. I really liked it. The problem I had, this is where again I just raised an eyebrow. Now, my score for the fight was 116 to 113 for Devin. I thought Victor made it a little closer in the second half of the fight, but I still thought Devin was able to pull it away. Um, so imagine my surprise. I heard 115-113 for Victor Ortiz, and then I hear 114-114 for no for as a for draw, a majority draw. Um, my guess is, I mean, there's probably a business decision behind it. More like, you can't give Ortiz a loss because for whatever reason he might be, maybe, Al's probably saving him for something. I don't know. Um, but that should have been a loss for Ortiz, and Devin should have won that fight. Um, a draw, I don't. The draw was bullshit, and probably later I'm gonna take a look at the official card just to see what the scoring was for the 12th round, to see how that could have been avoided. And the one judge and try to figure out how one judge actually gave Ortiz the fight, which doesn't even make any sense to me. Now, if these were two fighters that I was, that were in the higher, higher level of today's welterweights, I'd be like, oh, this is more of a scandal. But these are basically welterweights now. To either like they're rebuilding themselves. So I mean, I'm not overly outraged, but still, nonetheless, it's still an outrageous decision. Uh, but yeah, it was a good fight and a better effort than I would expect, especially from Ortiz. I thought Ortiz would have quit because he took some punishment. So I mean, I was surprised he did not quit. I mean, that was pretty much like it was pretty much how he was when he fought Berto and he won the welterweight title. He was just persistent, and like I said, my hats off to him for actually being that competitive and sticking in there for 12 rounds. Which took us into the Showtime card. First fight was Ray Robinson versus Ugas. Entertaining scrap. I mean, both those guys are some big welterweights. I mean, you can tell they cut down a lot. Ugas scored a knockdown early, and then in the seventh round, after a whole bunch of wild exchanges, including there was an after the bell shot that got Robinson guys because the points subtracted. And then the seventh round, where Ugas absolutely blasted him with a right hand to the temple, which Robinson, for some amazing reason, got up to his feet. And then, of course, Ugas scored. Some would call it a premature stoppage. I think it was legit. I mean, because although Ray's fighting back, Ray was pretty limp. So I think it was only a matter of time that he would actually go down again. But that was a good opener. And now Ugas is now in line to get a shot at Errol Spence. I'm actually be interested because Ugas has actually had a lot of has had a resurgence as of late. I mean, he's probably one of the few that actually benefited from actually fighting on doing go through the PBC, going through because his last loss, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, was by Amir Imam, I think. And then after that, he's pretty much has caused upsets upon upsets. Um, and even, of course, last year he had the best fight on that farce of a card for Floyd and Conor McGregor, with him and Delame actually tearing it up for free. So I'd give Ugas a pretty good shot in actually giving Spence a tough fight. But we'll see. That fight probably won't happen until like sometime in the fall, though. So then comes to the next fight, which was a rematch from last year. Yeah, Gavrilo versus Benavidez 2. The first fight I thought was close. It was a lot closer, and I actually gave Gavrilo the fight because he managed to score a knockdown in the last round. I gave him the fight by one. And I think one of the official cards were won, but gave Benavidez won that fight, and then he also claimed that vacant WBC title. This fight was not close. Benavidez absolutely beat the shit out of Gavrilo. I mean, that's the way I could say it. I mean, those combinations were just. I mean, one thing about someone like Benavidez, still with someone of his size, because the guy was damn near heavyweight size, and that worked his way down to to this type of weight. He's a big guy for a super middleweight. And what's more spectacular about him is the fact that he can turn up his hand speed. The combinations. He absolutely let Gavrilo hit all types of uppercuts, body shots. I mean, he absolutely just laced Gavrilo from 1 to 12. I mean, Gavrilo was a tough guy to actually, has a good chin to actually hang in there and take this type of punishment. I actually wanted him to pull it out. I actually wanted the corners and Gavrilo, and I was going to actually pull him out of the fight because it was getting one sided. It was terrible to watch. But Benavidez just beat him down. Did not score a knockdown, but I mean, he had him actually bleeding all over the place. It was a dominating performance, and it was a good way to right a wrong. So my hat's off to him. Gavrilo probably needs a little rebuild after those two fights. Benavidez hopefully will we'll get into the mix for more significant fights at 168. Hell, he can maybe challenge whoever the 168 guy, whoever wins the 168 for Super Series, World Boxing Super Series. That'd be a good fight. Whoever ends up being the WBA champion, at least, that would be nice for unification. So the main event after that was Danny Garcia versus Brandon Rios. Again, a fight that I was not overly interested in. Danny, coming off the loss of Keith Thurman, myself could have fought somebody better. And Brandon Rios is not my idea of a better fighter. Brandon Rios, of course, I've had my concerns. I mean, Brandon Rios is a far cry from the guy who I used to like when he was at 135, and then and he was doing his thing there. I mean, 135, even 140, those were his best decisions, his best divisions, his best fights. Well, pretty much once he went up to 147, outside of the that first third fight with Mike Alvarado, his performances there were not that great. They haven't been great. I mean, he's been popped, for taking stuff to have him lose weight. He's had terrible performances, and he got KO'd by Tim Bradley. So pretty much, yeah, his career has been in a tailspin. Um, Although yes, I did see his PBC debut fight, and he did win it, but I was not convinced because I'm thinking to myself, Rios is a damaged fighter, and Danny could do better for someone who's actually in his actual prime. The fight was more competitive than I thought it would be, mostly because Rios would kept a lot of pressure on Danny. Like Rios was coming off the ring on Danny, and kept him on the ropes more than I usually would see it. And I'm thinking to myself, this must be like ring rust or something going on. Um, that Danny's shaking off. Um, the fight wasn't overly close, but Rios was winning more rounds than I would have expected him to win. And I was thinking to myself, this fight may actually go the distance. Um, so imagine my surprise in the ninth round. Um, Danny lands the right cross over the jab, and whew, and then you can see Rios. This is now. I mean, Rios has been down before by body shots. I've never seen him down by a headshot. A solid, never mind KO one, but just the way that right hand landed, that next head, boom, yeah, and he went down. I was like, wow, that was pretty, for a guy like that. I mean, even that kind of shocked me. Rios got to his feet again, surprising me. Okay, he's ready to fight. But then, of course, he's you know, ref tell him to take some steps. He wobbles, and then got pull him out. So I'm not gonna say it was a good win for Danny, but it was the type of win that you expect him. I mean, basically he had to put him away. That's he did what he had to do. Rios in his post-fight interview was slurring his speech bad, and I've always said, that was the thing about Rios that always alarmed me is how bad his speech has gotten, and he was slurring so noticeably. It was terrible. Um, in Danny's interview, though, it got more interesting when Sean Porter and Kenny Porter entered the ring, and they had a little back and forth, and Jim Gray was like a little bit of a killjoy. Um, I did, it was entertaining, but you gotta do what you gotta do to get the fights. Keith Thurman's on the ringside, coming back from his elbow surgery and everything like that. So you gotta get some fights popping. Uh, so who knows? I mean, that might actually be the fight for Danny next. Sean Porter, and in this case too. And as I said to myself during the fight, is like if Rios can get this type of pressure on Danny, I can imagine what Porter will do. So it's actually an interesting style clash, but to be determined. Um, so yeah, I mean those are my thoughts on those fights. I was hoping for maybe a fight of the year type of candidate with as many fights that we had today, but fortunately all we got was just some good fights, but none to that level. So guess next week that'll be the Superfly card on HBO. See if one of those fights will produce a fight of the year. So until next week, peace.